first and last name for us so you have an idea of who is here tonight. That would be great. I will be monitoring the chat tonight for any of your questions, and then Mr. C will stop at some time and at specific times, and then I'll let him know what the questions are. A lot of the questions we've noticed have been the same for the past couple nights. If I can answer them, I will answer them, but otherwise I'm going to defer to Mr. C, or if I feel that it's something that everybody should hear because it's a really good question. So those basic ones that I can hook you up with, I will, but aside from that, I'll be deferring the questions to Mr. C. So now, without further ado, the principal of Henry Wilson Memorial School, Mr. Kasangwe.
Thanks, Mrs. Pomeroy. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Henry Wilson School. I see a lot of our fourth grade students on with us this evening, which is tremendous. We're very excited to be reopening our school. I know everyone really had some challenging times this spring and this summer, and we've been working very hard to prepare our school and get it ready for students to come back, because that's why we're here. We love our students, and the halls of Henry Wilson have been quite quiet over the last few months. So we're really excited to be welcoming our students back, whether or not your child is coming in person with us starting on Wednesday, or if your child will be remote by choice. So this evening, we will be talking to you all about our reopening plans specific to Henry Wilson. We'll be happy to answer all of your questions. And as Mrs. Pomeroy said, as I'm going along with tonight's presentation, if you can kindly write your questions into the chat, so just type them in, because we have such a large group. We can't have people unmuting and asking the questions. So just please put your questions into the chat as we're going. And if Mrs. Pomeroy can answer the question, she will put in the answer in the chat. As she just said, as I'm going through the presentation, I will be stopping frequently to check in, to ask or to see if there are any questions. When I'm presenting my screen to you, I cannot see you guys anymore. So I will need the help of Mrs. Pomeroy to let me know if there are any questions, and then she will ask them through her microphone, and then I will answer them. I will be honest, there may be some questions that I still can't answer. As you know, the decision to reopen schools came back in early August, when that decision was that we will be starting the school year all remote. And then just last Monday, the school board decided to change that decision. So we were originally going to open in phase 2, and now we are reopening in phase 4, which is everybody is back, but with restrictions, and of course with the remote by choice option. So we really want all of you to feel like you are comfortable with having all of your questions answered this evening. So please don't hesitate. No question is a silly question. We really want to make sure that everybody leaves this evening with an understanding of our procedures, our protocols, all of our planning, so that you feel comfortable sending your child back in school. And again, if you were remote by choice, you are comfortable with understanding how it's going to work, because it will be completely different from the spring, and completely different from your third grade experience at Valley View. Before we begin, I would be remiss to just recognize that this has been a huge undertaking, with the planning, with the protocols, with the procedures. The admin team in the entire district has been working extremely hard over the summer, and more specifically to Henry Wilson. Mrs. Pomeroy and I have been really working very hard together to ensure that our plan keeps our students and staff as safe as possible. And then I have to give kudos to our amazing teachers, our amazing Henry Wilson staff. They were all back in school this week, getting our classrooms ready for our students to ensure that their classrooms are following all the guidelines, and then also attending professional development. So their educational learning was also happening throughout this week. So I see that there are some questions already coming in. A lot of the questions that I've noticed so far will be questions that I will be answering throughout the presentation, especially about the remote learning and such. So please, if you could just be patient with those questions, as they will be answered during the presentation. And then, of course, as I'm going with the presentations, if questions come up with what I'm talking about, please feel free to put them in the chat. And then again, at the very end, if there's something that we did not touch upon or we missed a question, feel free to enter the questions too and at the end. So I'm going to start presenting my screen. And we will.
Sorry to interrupt, Mr. C, but did you notice that we have all of the 4th grade teachers online tonight?
I do, and that is coming.
Great.
Definitely want to alert everybody of our 4th grade team. And yeah, it does look like everybody's here. So first off, again, I would love to welcome everybody to Henry Wilson School. Henry Wilson, as you may know, if you have not had students here before, is a grades 4 through 8 school for Farmington. So this is the beginning of a 5-year journey for your child at Henry Wilson. And if you look specifically at the graphic here that I prepared, the middle graphic with the red cape and the S, you know what that stands for. I placed that there because every single one of us, whether we're an administrator, a teacher, a support staff, all of our Henry Wilson staff, all of our students, and all of our families will need to be acting like Superman. This is going to be a very challenging year for all of us. This is a new experience for all of us, but as long as we keep the line of communication open, we keep the collaboration going, we will be supportive of each other. I said this to our staff in our staff meeting a couple of days ago. Collaboration and communication are going to be so key this year. We do not want any of our families to feel like that they have questions that have not been answered. So please reach out to us as we go. Reach out to your child's teacher. Our guidance department, Mrs. Ellis, is the 4th grade guidance counselor. She's awesome. She's willing to help in any way that she can. Myself, Mrs. Pomeroy, we really want to feel like everybody is supported, that everybody is comfortable, and that as long as we keep those communication lines open, I strongly feel we will accomplish that. And this year, Henry Wilson, we're looking at teaching through a different lens. As I just said, it's going to be very different. We need to be flexible with our students. We need to be understanding of our students. And we need to look at the way that we're teaching our students differently. Because of everything that's going on, our students have not been physically in a classroom since March. That's a very long time. So we as a staff just need to be prepared that our approaches previous to COVID-19 may have to be changed a little bit. And again, as long as we have that common understanding, I strongly feel that we are going to have a successful year here. So welcome to fourth grade. This bulletin board that is hung up in the fourth grade hallway, I think really has a lot of words that we're going to look for our students to be. You know, some of these words as confident and brave and dedicated and strong, but we also want you to be goofy and happy and fun. We can't wait to get to know our fourth grade students, because I love that word in the bottom right. Everybody is their own people, their own person. Everybody is unique in their ways. So we're really excited to welcome you guys all to Henry Wilson. And as Mrs. There's a quick look at your fourth grade hallway. So the one on the right is kind of the extended look, and the one on the left is a more close-up look. So the library is on the left side where those black windows are. And then if you look on the left picture, your classrooms are all in a row there, 1, 2, 3, and then there's one way back there that you can't really see. So those are your classrooms for this year. And as Mrs. Pomeroy stated, we have our entire fourth grade team here with us. Mrs. Seward, who is our team leader, Miss Brunel, Miss Clark, Miss Corey, Miss Ham, and Mr. Hornbeck, who is our UNH intern this year. So if you just didn't, I couldn't see you, but if you guys can all give a quick wave and a smile. Mrs. Seward, I see you right there. Miss Ham, Miss Corey, Mr. Hornbeck's on with us, Mrs. Brunel's on with us, and Miss Clark's on with us. So thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule, as our schedules have been quite busy, to be on with us this evening. So looking at Henry Wilson and our platform for this school year, these are kind of our goals that we are focusing in on as a staff. So I just want to talk very briefly about that before we go into the reopening part of the presentation. So here at Henry Wilson, we have a huge emphasis on social emotional learning, or SEL. We really started doing a lot of hard work with SEL as a staff last year. We started embedding SEL into our school, into our academics, and we're really excited to continue expanding upon that this year. We have adopted an SEL program that we'll be doing with our students. Our students will be learning about social thinking, and our students will be learning about responsive circles and morning meeting and responsive classroom. So we're really excited to keep expanding our SEL practice here at Henry Wilson. All of our classrooms are what we say inclusive classrooms. That means everybody is welcome, no matter what the student's level is, no matter how successful the students are, no matter if the student is on an IEP, not on an IEP, 504 plan. All of our students are in our general education classrooms, because we strongly feel that that's where they can perform their best. They need to be with their peers. They need to have access to grade level curriculum across the board. So all of our classrooms are inclusive here at Henry Wilson. And as I just mentioned, our students will be doing a lot with responsive circles, responsive meetings with each other. Our unified arts teachers will be taking a responsive approach, which we will talk a little bit more about as we get into the school year. Here at Henry Wilson, we've spent a lot of time over the last year working on innovative teaching practices and understanding that we need to take 21st century teaching and learning approaches with our students. And we also emphasize rigor here at Henry Wilson. And by rigor, we don't really mean hard, right? Rigor doesn't necessarily mean hard or challenging. Rigor is meeting the individual needs of our students and meeting them at their level so that they can continue to grow both academically, social, emotionally, and behaviorally. And we also take a restorative discipline approach here at Henry Wilson, which means if a student doesn't make the best choice, we don't just, what I say, throw the book at them, right? Give them a detention, keep them in for recess. You know, for us, it's about the educational piece of discipline, and we really focus on that here at Henry Wilson, that we work with our students who are with us in the office or even with their teachers for making probably not the best choice. It's about the learning piece. So hopefully that student will not make that same choice again, or at least lessen the chance that that student is going to make that choice that got them in the office or got them in trouble with their teacher. So we really spend a lot of time with the educational part of discipline. As I mentioned, social emotional learning is so important to us here at Henry Wilson, and with everything that has gone on, SEL is our #1 focus when we reopen next Wednesday. So before we fully launch into the 4th grade curriculum, we have to engage in our community building activities. This may be for the first several days of school, may stretch across the first 2 or 3 weeks of school. It's essential that our community understands how important this is, and that content, the academics, will gradually increase over time during the first month of school. This is very typical in normal times, right? With the opening of school, get to know you fun stuff, but it's so important right now, more so probably than ever before. So the schedules that our teachers have, you know, when they're teaching math, when they're teaching science, when they're teaching reading and writing, doesn't necessarily reflect the extra emphasis that they're going to be spending with their students on social emotional learning. But of course, assume that our teachers will take the liberty to adjust their schedules for the first month to create their classroom culture and community as needed. Mrs. Palmer, are there any questions yet about this? Again, I'm going to go dive into our reopening plan, but anything that I've spoke of so far?
There isn't anything on what you've spoken of so far, but there is a question that I don't think is going to come up in your plan.
Okay.
And it was, not everybody knows who their child's teacher is going to be next year. Do we know when we'll be giving that information?
All right, I was told that our secretaries did reach out to everybody today, and that if they could not get a hold of somebody personally, that they left a voicemail indicating your child's teacher. So if you did not get a voicemail, and that would have happened today, please feel free to reach out to us in the morning or email me, and I will definitely email you back your child's teacher. But most, if not all phone calls, again, I was told that all phone calls were made today. But again, if you did not get a voicemail from us, either please call the main office in the morning, or please send me an email, and I will definitely let you know who your child's teacher is. So something that I just want to briefly touch upon, going into our reopening of schools, this year, our students, no matter if they're physically with us in their classroom or remote by choice at home, our students will have the same schedule no matter what the model. So remote learning at home will be synchronous to the schedule if they were in school. So they will be following the same schedule, whether or not, again, the students are at home learning or in their classroom learning. And again, I will go into great detail on that in just a minute. So something that may be new to a lot of our 4th grade students and families is that we are a Google for Education school. So as you can see in the top right-hand corner, all of those symbols are the different apps that we use here at Henry Wilson. All of our teachers will be having a Google Classroom, and this will be kind of the learning database for our students, their assignments, the teachers' lessons, will be put into their Google Classroom. All of our students will be assigned a Google Classroom, and that will be really the main premise for their learning this year. A lot of, again, their assignments, their activities, the teachers will be putting in their Google Classroom so the students have access not only in school, but at home. Once we get our back-ordered Chromebooks in, all of our fourth grade students will be issued a Chromebook that they'll be responsible for bringing back to and from school. So that will be coming hopefully the end of September or early October. And for those parents especially and students who are new to Google Apps for Education or new to Google Classroom, and I'll be sending this slideshow presentation out to you. I did put this link in here because it's great. It's a great tutorial tool for both parents and students to help you get to know some of the main apps that we do use as a Google Classroom school or a Google for Education school. So our students will need to become familiar with Drive, for example. And then some of these Google apps, Slides, Sheets, Docs. If you're brand new to Google Classroom as a parent, some of these tutorials may be helpful so that you get to know Google Classroom yourself. Parent guide communication, how to log into Google Classroom, how to join a class, how to access Google Meet through Google Classroom, for example. So all these are hyperlinks, so you just click on what you need some support with, and it'll bring you to another page to provide that support. We also are planning some virtual help sessions where our curriculum director and a few of our teachers will be hosting evenings, and they will support you in getting to know Google Classroom and the Google Apps for Education. So we're really excited that we'll be able to offer that to you this year as well. And one homework assignment that all of our fourth grade students will have once they receive their individual Chromebooks that they'll be bringing back and forth to school is that they need to charge their Chromebooks at home at night. So every morning when the students come to school, their Chromebook is nicely charged. But again, we don't need to worry about that until the Chromebooks actually come in. These Chromebooks have been ordered for months and months and months. And as you can imagine, every school across the United States has ordered Chromebooks. So the companies have really done a great job keeping up. But again, we're told that they'll be in the end of September or early October. Any other questions, Mrs. Pomeroy, before I get into our plan?
Well, there was one on the Chromebooks that if they have a Chromebook of their own, do they have to use a school Chromebook?
They'll be assigned one. The school eventually, I'm not sure will be mandating all of our students to use the school one. At the start, I'm not sure if that will be a mandate. That's more at the district level. But whether or not a student does have one at home, he or she will be assigned one, and that one can be brought between school and home.
And that is it for right now.
All right, so let's dive into our comprehensive plan for in-person learning with restrictions in our remote by choice option. As I said, this is phase 4. So we're proud to present this comprehensive plan that can best serve all of our students and staff at Henry Wilson. This information found here explains in detail the implementation of the responsibilities, expectations, protocols, procedures, schedules, and services during this in-person learning with restrictions and remote by choice phase. As we continue into the school year, please keep in mind that these plans are ever changing, and we will do our best to communicate to all of our school community members. And again, welcome back. So just hitting upon the basic schedule for us here at Henry Wilson, in-person learning and students who are remote by choice will follow a normal school day of 7:50 a.m. to 2:35 p.m. So our school day here at Henry Wilson starts at 7:50 and ends at 2:35. Students in grades 4 through 6 will be in a self-contained classroom. That means that they will be remaining with their class throughout the entire day. There will be some transitions that I'll talk about a little bit later, but even during those transitions, the students will remain with their class. There will be no mixing of students. Remote by choice students will also have their specific schedule emailed. And again, this schedule will mirror the student's schedule if they were in person. So let me talk about arrival and dismissal procedures, and then I will pause for any questions so far. Please pay attention to this, as this is very important. As you can imagine, we anticipate more of our students being picked up and dropped off this year rather than taking a bus. Thank you to those of you who indicated your preference on our survey. We really appreciate that, as that has given us very important information through our planning process. So the school will open its doors for students starting at 7:30 a.m. Students cannot arrive to campus prior to 7:30. This is a safety issue, and now with COVID-19, it becomes a health issue as well. We're not a daycare facility, so we're asking that you follow our procedures and that students cannot arrive to campus prior to 7:30. All students will enter the building through a specified door based on their grade level. We can no longer have, the main entrance of the school or this doorway of the school where all of our students enter and exit. So fourth grade will have a specific way that they enter the building. And luckily, all of our fourth grade classrooms have direct access to the outside. So our fourth grade students, when they arrive to school, will go into a door, and that door, there'll be a hallway there where they will follow to their fourth grade classroom. When I was talking about the door connected to the outside, I was thinking about our plan that was before this one that we had to change, so I apologize about that. So our students will enter the fourth grade door, and then that door will lead them to their classrooms. Student drop-off is now in the rear of the building, so if you've had other students here at Henry Wilson in the last couple of years, you know that parent pickup and drop-off was always in the front of the building. So we're flip-flopping cars, riders, and bus. So student drop-off is now in the rear. Students must remain in the car until staff members are present and indicate that children may begin to exit the vehicle. So out in the rear of the school, we will have a designated zone for student drop-off, and you can only allow your student to exit the vehicle in that drop-off zone. So please follow our established procedures. Do not drop off your child in unspecified areas, as this creates unsafe conditions for our students. Students who walk to school or ride a bike cannot arrive prior to 7:30, so please take this into consideration when deciding the time that your child leaves your home and the travel time the student has, so he or she does not arrive to campus prior to 7:30. We will have a designated area for our students who walk and ride to school so that they can then enter the building safely. Upon entering the building, students will go directly to their first period class, which for fourth grade is their class for the entire day. Another arrival procedure that we will be needing all parents to do is that parents must pre-screen their child prior to their arrival at school per New Hampshire and CDC guidelines. So this will be an electronic screening. We will be sending out the link to you on Tuesday, and that electronic screening will need to take place every school day. And we need that submitted to us by you before 7 a.m. because we need time on our end to get everything organized and print out the lists so the staff members who will be checking in students as they enter the building, your child will be on that list of having completed the pre-screening. And pre-screenings may not be completed ahead of time. So for example, you can't do it at 9:30 or 10 before bed. By law, the screening needs to take place the day of school, before your child leaves the house, and then we just need that submitted before 7 a.m. If a daily paper screening is required because you do not have consistent internet access, please contact us. This says by September 3rd, but all the way up to Tuesday, so we can make sure that we'll have some paper copies ready for you. You would just need to come to the school and pick them up, and we can give you a stack so they'll last for many days ahead. As students walk in the building at their designated grade level entrance, there will be a staff member with a list of that day's completed screening questionnaire. Those students who are not on the completed questionnaire list will be directed immediately to our isolation room until a screening has been completed by the parent. If a screening is not completed, a parent or guardian must come pick up the student. Again, that's a requirement that we need to follow as a school. So we're just asking for your help with that, so that when your child arrives to school and enters the building, your child is on that list. The parent or guardian submitted that pre-screening, so then he or she can report directly to class. So I'll stop there so far, and Mrs. Pomeroy, ask away.
No, we're good. We just had somebody who needed to leave to go pick up kids from practice, but that's about it. Things are going good in the chat.
All right, sounds good. So let's talk about dismissal. As you can imagine, dismissal will take a little bit longer time than usual as we have to follow strict new procedures. We'll be staggering dismissals in the following order. We'll start with our car pickups first in the back of the building, our bus students second, which will be in the front of the building, and then walkers and bikers third, which they will have designated doors to exit. Just like the morning, student car pickups will now be in the back of the building. There will be a designated area. Students will be picked up by cone number. So when you're in line as a parent, a staff member is going to come to your car and ask for your child's last name, and then you will be told a cone number. Once you arrive at the designated pickup area, you will drive directly to that cone number, and your child will be waiting for you there at the cone. We, of course, ask for you to be patient as we do provide a safe pickup procedure for our students and staff, and also be patient as our students and staff, as well as our parents, get used to this new procedure and routine. So just to quickly summarize, I'm a parent, I'm coming to pick up my child, I'm in line, a staff member is going to come to my window, ask for my child's last name. He or she is then going to say cone number 6, for example. When you get to that designated pickup area, you will drive directly to cone number 6, and your child will be waiting there for you. We're going to have 8 cones set up, so 8 students plus siblings will enter the car at their designated cone. We'll have those 8 cars load, then we'll bring in another 8 cars, they'll load, and so on. So once we get into that routine, it will become pretty quick, so that we can keep our line of cars moving. And then we're just asking that parents do not arrive any earlier than 2:25, because there will be some blockades out there. So we don't want the traffic to back up heavily on School Street. So if you can just try to not arrive before 2:25, we would appreciate that. Any questions on that?
There's one question. Is there going to be an after-school program?
Like CAP?
Yeah, if you do, yeah, like CAP or rec.
Yeah, it's my understanding that right now there will be no after-school program.
Okay, that's
Hopefully
it.
that will change. All right, so let's talk about all of our restrictions that we'll be having. We will be putting in safety procedures and expectations to minimize our students' exposure risk. And the key word there is minimize, right? None of these restrictions is going to make anything foolproof, right? But if we put these restrictions in place and we all follow these restrictions, including staff, including students, then we will minimize all of our exposure risk. It is the expectations for all school members to follow all the safety rules to ensure that we keep everyone safe. So first, let's talk about face coverings. So students and staff will be required to wear a face covering that is at least 2-ply when in our building. Okay, so that is mandatory. No bandanas are allowed, and gaiters must be at least 2 layers. Students are expected to bring in their own face covering. However, we will have some available if needed. So if a student happens to forget one, or his or her face covering breaks or gets dirty during the day, we will have the medical grade disposable face coverings available for anybody. Face coverings are now part of our school dress code and must be school appropriate, or a new face covering will be provided. If a student refuses to wear a face covering, the student will immediately be sent to the isolation room and a parent will be called for dismissal. After the first issue with this, disciplinary action will be taken. Further details are found later in this plan. The following are situations where a student may take his or her mask off. During lunch, we have planned our lunch periods so that our students will all be at least 6 feet away from each other because they're eating lunch. So the students may have their face covering off while eating lunch. Whenever the students are in a room, when 6 feet of distancing is available, the students may take their mask off. And when our students are outside, we've talked to our staff about outdoor learning as much as possible, especially now that the weather is still pretty warm. When the students are outside and 6 feet of distancing can take place, the students will be taking their masks off as well. And our teachers will also be offering scheduled mask breaks during the day. Us as adults, right, we're wearing masks all day. We need our breaks as well. And our students need their breaks. So we will be having plenty of mask breaks and opportunities for students to not have their mask on throughout the day. Any questions on face coverings?
Yes, could you please clarify whether or not face shields are okay or if it has to be a mask?
It has to be a mask. A student may wear a face shield, but they have to be wearing a mask as well. There cannot be a face shield without a mask.
Because the question was, the superintendent earlier had said, earlier in the COVID season, had said it would be acceptable for face shields, and that's changed?
That has changed.
Okay, thank you. That is our only question for right now.
Okay. So partitions. It's the intent of the district to have a partition available for each student's desk to help minimize exposure. We will prioritize these for desks that are under 6 feet of each other, which will be most, if not all, of our classrooms. Our classrooms are not that huge here at Henry Wilson, so it's not possible for our classrooms to have 6 feet of distance between desks. Right now, based on the number of students coming into school, we are able to have our students have our desks at minimum 3 feet apart. So because we are in that 3 to 4 foot range, the district will be putting up plexiglass. It's actually scheduled to come in tomorrow. So they'll be spending the weekend installing the plexiglass on all of our students' desks, on our teachers' desks, and so on, because our student desks will not be 6 feet apart at Henry Wilson. A little bit about some of our sanitation practices. Students and staff will be required to use hand sanitizer while entering and leaving every room in the building. So as they enter a room at Henry Wilson, they must sanitize, and when they're leaving a room at Henry Wilson, they must sanitize. As staff members, we do as well. When in their classroom, students in grades 4 through 6 will remain in the same seat and desk throughout the school day. So your child will have his or her desk. No other student will be seated at that desk throughout the entire day. Custodians will be consistently sanitizing commonly touched areas such as door handles, railings, light switches, etc. Our teachers will be consistently sanitizing as well. Once the school day is over, our night custodians will do a thorough cleaning of the entire school to prepare for kids and staff to come the following day. Any questions about that so far, Mrs. Pomeroy?
No questions on the cleaning. Do you know when people are going to find out whether or not their student has been approved to take the bus?
Everybody who requested a bus will be taking the bus unless your child lives within 2 miles of the school.
Okay, thank you. That's it.
Okay, great. 4th grade doesn't have lockers, so we don't need to worry about that. There will be no locker use in the building. During transitions, students and staff will follow the directed pathways in the building while maintaining social distancing as they are in the hallways. Teachers will organize a safe transition when needed to allow for social distancing of 6 feet. So as students are transitioning in the hallways, they are required to remain 6 feet apart. And students may not divert to any other location during transition times, such as restrooms, the nurse, the front office, and any other staff member's room. So for example, if the students are coming back to class from lunch, they may not just go to the bathroom, for example. They need to come back to class, they will sanitize, the teacher will have them get settled, and then if a student needs to use the restroom, the student will then be allowed to go to the restroom. And the good news with our 4th grade classrooms is all of our classrooms have restrooms directly connected to the classroom, just like you all had at Valley View. So the students will not need to leave the classroom to go to the restroom, which is nice. So each section of the building classroom will have an assigned bathroom for student use. As I just mentioned, with grade 4, our restrooms are right there between the classrooms. So one student will be allowed to use the bathroom at a time. Before, we used to allow 1 girl and 1 boy. Now it's just 1 student. Students will be required to sign out and then sign back in with their name, date, and time. Even though they're not going far, we need that information to help with contact tracing. And our teachers will check this regularly throughout the day to ensure the information is completed and legible. Students will sanitize their hands as they leave the classroom. Upon entering the bathroom, the students will close the door, do their thing. The light button is for communal bathrooms, so our 4th graders do not have that. Students must wash their hands, and then they'll also sanitize as they enter back into the classroom. And custodians will schedule, I just found this out today, that it's going to be 1 bathroom cleaning during the day, not 2. So I do need to change that, but I want to make sure that I'm clear with everybody that the custodians will be scheduling 1 bathroom cleaning during the school day. Any questions about sanitation or restrooms, Mrs. Pomeroy?
Nope, these guys are awesome. They are our most polite and listening audience in the 3 nights. I love 4th grade parents. Love them.
Awesome. So let's talk about lunch. So there's been a lot of back and forth, as I'm sure you've heard out there, whether or not students should eat lunch in their classrooms. We are going to be having our students go to the cafeteria for lunch. We will be dividing our students, dividing our classrooms. So whether or not they're eating in the cafeteria or our multi-purpose room, the students will be 6 feet apart. Lunch will be in a more kind of grab and go format. It's not going to be, you know, a brown bag type grab and go, but the choices, the students will have 3 different choices a day. The choices will be packaged up. The students will have a disposable tray and they'll be able to grab the choice that they want. The milk will be handed to them, and then they'll be on their merry way. And if you haven't heard yet, all lunches are free for right now. So whether or not you would technically qualify for a reduced or free lunch, that's out the window right now, as all of our students will be receiving free lunch and breakfast to start the school year. I don't know all the complete details yet, as this is just something that has come out in the last day. So we will be providing more details on that, but all of our students get a free breakfast and lunch at school, which is pretty cool. To help us with contact tracing, students will have assigned seats in all of their classes, including lunch. We talked about the restroom use will be mandated with a sign-in and sign-out procedure. And then students that ride a bus will have assigned seating. They'll be required to wear a face covering. I don't know all the complete bus details. That information will be coming out either through the superintendent's office or through our transportation director. Visitors are not permitted to come into the building unless given specific permission. Any permissions granted will include a mandatory screening process. So just like the staff has to fill out that pre-screening every morning, our parents need to do that for our students. Any visitors will also be required to do that, but there will be very few instances where visitors are permitted to enter the building. The building will primarily just be for staff and students. Of course, we have our UPS and FedEx deliveries and our food deliveries and whatnot, but they just stay in one section of the building. For example, all of our UPS FedEx deliveries are right here at the main entrance of the building, where more of our larger deliveries are in the rear of the building. Those people do not walk freely in any locations in the building. Also, we are unable to dismiss a child from his or her classroom until the parent is at the main entrance of the building. In the past, we've done our best to accommodate. You know, if you're running late and you have to get to an appointment, sometimes our parents will call and say, hey, could you have my child ready for when I get there, as you know, I'm running late or whatnot, and we usually are able to do that. Unfortunately, we are no longer able to do that because we cannot have students remaining in hallways. So we will do our best to get your child down and dismissed as quickly as possible. The secretary would then walk your child out and then hand you the sign out, and then you would sign out your child that way. Whenever possible, if we need to have parent meetings, we will be holding them virtually through Google Meet to minimize visitors. If we do need to host a meeting in the building, we'll utilize a larger space to allow for social distancing throughout the meeting. A face covering will, of course, be required, following the same requirements as stated earlier, and the designated meeting space will then be thoroughly sanitized after the meeting. Any questions, Mrs. Pomeroy?
Nope, we're still doing awesome. Keep going.
All right. Here are some other COVID-19 related procedures, as well as some info about our quarantine room. We will follow the COVID-19 procedures and protocols adopted by the Farmington School Board when dealing with suspected cases of COVID-19 in the building. And if you want further information about how we're going to deal with cases that may happen in our school, definitely check out the district-wide reopening plan. That specific plan was adopted by the school board, and it has all of that information in it. So if students and staff who are suspected or self-reported of COVID-19 symptoms during the school day, they'll go immediately to our isolation room. Our school nurse will then make the determination if the student or staff member must go home. Our quarantine room will be a designated room in our building with a window, bathroom, and enough space to socially distance up to 3 students and/or staff. The room is strategically located near an exit to the outside to limit any more exposure when leaving the building. The room will be monitored by the nurse until the student and our staff member have left the building. And after each use of the isolation room, there will be deep cleaning and sanitization. Hopefully we never need to use that room, but we do have one ready to go if we need to. Student parents' failure to comply with COVID-19 health and safety protocols and other school procedures. And this includes, but not limited to, the wearing of face coverings, observance of established traffic flow patterns, physically distancing, personal sanitation protocols. During the school day, to our students, there'll be one verbal warning and/or administrative conversation. Then the student will be placed in the isolation room and sent home. There will be no tolerance for fake coughing on others. Fake coughing will be treated like spitting during the pandemic, which is a form of assault. If a student displays willful or chronic failure to comply with face covering mandates and/or safety distancing practices, this will constitute as a suspendable offense and may result in the student being shifted to our full remote learning option. Any parent who does not follow established procedures, including drop-off and pickup procedures, will be referred to the Farmington Police Department. Any questions before I talk about our remote by choice option?
Nope, nothing in the chat at this time, Mr. C.
Oh, you guys are amazing. Moving right along. So here's some information about our remote by choice option. As you know, we are offering this to any family. This will look completely different than the spring. This experience will be synchronous to what a student's school day would be if he or she were in the building. Synchronous meaning at the same time. Therefore, the student must be present virtually to start the school day at 7:50 and continue until the end of the school day at 2:35. The student will be required to be in live Google Meets for each subject area. In doing this, those students will be engaged in the teacher's daily direct instruction. That's something that obviously was lacking in the spring, right? We were all kind of pushed into emergency mode. We did our best as a school, as Valley View, as Henry Wilson, as the high school. We did our best over those last few months to continue some sort of education for our students. Right? We'll be the first ones to tell you that it didn't go so hot. It wasn't what we would have wanted, first choice, second choice, 20th choice, 50th choice. But in all reality, we were forced without any planning time to do what we could do during that crazy, crazy time. So now that we've had the opportunity to gather feedback from our students, from our families, from our staff, we have developed this plan so that we can ensure that our students are getting the education that they need during this difficult time. So it's so important for our students to get that daily direct instruction from their teachers. So the students will be engaged in that daily direct instruction in all of the lessons, assessments, and classroom discussions. There will be ample opportunity for students to engage with their teachers and classmates remotely to provide the most inclusive environment as possible. This will also promote a smooth transition back to in-person learning for the student when the family decides to do so, or when we make it to phase 5. Knock on wood, we will get there. And phase 5 is everybody's back, no restrictions. So because of that, there will be no more remote by choice. The students will use their teacher's Google Classroom as the learning management system, and the teacher will have their Google Classroom set up to synchronize with what is happening in the actual classroom. And a typical subject class period will look like the following. The teacher will start for 10 to 20 minutes of the subject class with a mini lesson, right? That will be the teacher's direct instruction to the students. both the live students in the classroom, both the live students virtually. Then the teacher will have the students go into small groups and or work independently through Google Classroom. And when I say small groups, right, for the students that are physically in the classroom, they may work with a partner, right? They will be at least that 3 feet apart with their mask, with the partition or plexiglass in between. Or the students will be working in small groups online. Maybe they're in a Google Doc and they're all sharing and providing input and collaborating that way. As I say here, Google Meet will have the option for virtual small groups starting in October. If you're familiar with Zoom, you may know that they offer breakout rooms, right? Where everybody who's in a large group like we are right now, the moderator can create breakout rooms and have groups of students go into that breakout room. So a teacher can say, you know, these 5 students are going into breakout room A, while these 4 students are going into breakout room B, and then they'll be live face-to-face with each other, able to collaborate, communicate, have a discussion, and then the teacher is able to travel through those breakout rooms. So we're really excited about that. Also, again, the students will be working on independent work that they will access through their Google Classroom, again, whether or not they're in the classroom or at home. And then at the end of the lesson, the teacher will provide direct instruction again for lesson closure and or exit tickets or some kind of informal assessment. So the teacher has an understanding on if the student met the teacher's lesson objectives, if they're going to need more review the following day. Those informal assessments at the end of every class is so important to help with the teacher's understanding of what was effective in the lesson. Do the students need more support? Or, yep, they have it, we're ready to move on. So the schedule, students again will be required to follow the in-person learning schedule. Instead of physically being present, the students are expected to be in class on time through the teacher's Google Meet. And these links will be available in their teacher's Google Classroom. All students must have the necessary technology to effectively and regularly communicate, receive instruction, interact with class, and comply with work requirements. It's the responsibility of the student or family to communicate any needs to meet our requirements. Students must comply with all work requirements in a timely fashion, such as due dates and deadlines, and students reach out or parents reach out to the teacher when they're experiencing any difficulty with the material or with meeting the set timeline. Student dress code still applies during remote sessions, whether or not the students are in school or at home learning. They're still technically in school. Our student handbook still applies, and in that student handbook includes a dress code. You would not believe some of the things we saw on camera when we were in remote learning in the spring. So students need to follow our dress code. When in a live session, our students must have their camera on and be visible by the teacher. When a student is not actively engaged in a discussion, they must mute their microphone to allow for a successful learning environment for everyone. When students are working on independent work and or during breaks, students may turn off their camera. And students, as I just said, must adhere to all policies, procedures, and expectations within the student handbook. And when we are able to provide Chromebooks to all of our students, I know some of our remote by choice students currently have a Farmington Chromebook. Remember that they are property of the school district and are monitored for inappropriate use. Students must adhere to the school's acceptable use policy. If a student does not adhere to these expectations, they may lose the privilege to have a Chromebook or have Chromebook limitations imposed. So as far as attendance goes, students must attend all live sessions daily, including all academic periods throughout the school day, their unified arts class, Again, microphones will be muted unless the student is active in a discussion, and the student's camera is on so the teacher can see the student. Parents must call the school's front office by 8 a.m. if their child is going to be absent for the day. So that same rule applies whether or not the student is in school or remote by choice. We need you to call your child out by 5 a.m. through the main office. And per the approved policy related to absences, notes from a physician only constitute an excused absent. A parent phone call does not constitute an excused absence. It is an absence, but it's not an excused absence. Only a physician's note will constitute that. If a student arrives late to a live session, he or she will be marked tardy. Each teacher will follow our remote learning attendance procedure, which will be sent home to all remote by choice students. And just a reminder that truancy is defined by 10 half days per school district policy JH. Technology issues. If a student has difficulty remembering any login or password, he or she or a parent is responsible to contact Mrs. Ellis, who is our grades 4, 5, and 6 guidance counselor. Her email here is dellis@sau61.org. If you're having a technological problem with your child's Chromebook, please email tech support. And that email, as you can see, is communitytechsupport@sau61.org. And then within the email, just state what the issue is. By sending your email to that specific address, it creates a ticket for our IT department, and then somebody from our IT department will reach out to you. And just so you all know, here are our expectations of our teachers. Teachers are responsible for setting up live Google Meet sessions during their in-person classes to allow for remote learners to be included in the class. Teachers are expected to set up their Google Classroom to synchronize with all of their daily classes. Both in-person and remote by choice students will utilize Google Classroom each day. Teachers will take attendance for all learners and record it in PowerSchool. If a student is not present at the start of the day at 7:50, the teacher will mark that student absent. If, of course, the student comes in late, we will change that absence to tardy or comes online late. And then follow-up communication with the student and family is mandatory by our teachers, and that will be according to our attendance procedures. The teacher's camera will be set up in the classroom so no students are visible and only the teacher and the smartboard are visible. Teachers will understand that remote learners may have some audio and visual challenges in this experience, and they'll do their best to provide accommodations when needed. Teachers will constantly monitor and check in with our remote learners. Teachers may need to answer questions or redirect disruptive behavior. Teachers will provide opportunities for remote learners to be included in the class discussions and activities. And teachers will define what their individual class remote learning expectations are for their remote learners. So that's a rundown of remote by choice. Are there any questions?
Hey, Mr. C. So some of the questions are about like if the assignments will be the same if you're remote and in person.
Yes, the assignments will be the same. And when I say assignments will be the same, it does not mean that every single student in the class, both in person or remote, will have the same exact assignment, because our teachers, right, are gearing their instruction, gearing their assignments based on the student's needs. So my assignment may be different than another student's assignment, but that's based on my individual learning level and my individual needs. But the general assignments that are being issued to the class will be the same whether or not the student is remote or in school.
This question is really cool. It's come up every night, and I just really like the answer. So if a student is sick or has a pending COVID test or something like that, will they go to remote learning during that time?
Yes, and that's one of the reasons why we want to make sure that all of our students have Chromebooks, because let's say your child is exhibiting symptoms and your child gets a test, and you may have to wait to get the results. The student, right, can't come back to school. If the student is feeling well enough, right, the student most definitely can remote into their classroom, and that would count as being present for the school day. It wouldn't be counted as an absence. And the same goes if you or your child needs to quarantine. Let's say you go on a family vacation and you go outside of New England, right, where the current restrictions say if you come back, you need to quarantine for 14 days. While at home, your child can definitely remote into the classroom. And don't tell anybody, and kids may not like this, but now because of all this technology in Google Classroom, we won't have official snow days anymore, where snow days will be remote learning days. So we won't be having a lot of snow days anymore, unless, of course, we get a bad ice storm and nobody has electricity or something. So that's pretty exciting that, all of this new technology can also offer that, so we are not stuck being in school later in June.
Yeah, and I think that's really awesome that we don't have to go that late. And, it's about the learning. And so your child's learning will not be interrupted. A lot of times when they're sick or just kind of a little sick, they miss a lot of school, and maybe you don't pick up the what the teachers have prepared in the office, and you just didn't get a chance to swing by the school. It doesn't matter now. You don't have to swing by the school. Your kid can still learn at home. So we have another question.
Sure.
Will there be packets this year?
No, they will not be packed.
And then this has come up a couple of times. So if your child is remote, can they come back to in person? And if they're in person, can they go to remote?
Yeah, I mean, we're asking families to just help us out so it doesn't become like a yo-yo. So we just ask that you keep that in mind. But of course, if your child is at home and you chose the remote by choice option because you want to kind of wait and see to see how things go here with the staff and students who are physically here, and fingers crossed all's going well, we haven't had any cases, things have been going smoothly, and now you're like, I'm more comfortable now, I think my child can return to school. Obviously we're going to welcome him or her with open arms. And obviously the flip side, can happen too if your child is coming back, and we've had a couple COVID cases that may not warrant the overall closing of the entire school, but you're just not comfortable anymore. You definitely can move your child to remote by choice as long as we stay in either phases 1 through 4.
But you just can't make that decision and send your kid in without letting the school know.
Yeah, there'll need to be conversation behind that, obviously, and there will be some starting points or end points. For example, if you decide on a Tuesday, that doesn't mean that your child comes back right away on Wednesday. There needs to be, again, a conversation, and then your child may be able to come back that following Monday, because we also need to monitor the number of students physically in our classrooms so that we can continue following the restrictions that we need to follow here in school.
And then there was the question, and Ms. Brunel answered it. Thank you, Ms. Brunel. That are teachers going through the same pre-screening process as students?
Yes. So as I mentioned earlier, parents and guardians, right? We're asking that you do the pre-screening every morning. We're requiring it, and we're requiring our staff to do it too before they step foot in the building, all staff needs to do it, including me, every morning. So yes, that's a mandate for everyone.
This question has come up the past couple nights, and it is a great question. So at this time, and it has changed over the nights too, what percentage of students are remote as of today?
Great question. So as of today, we're about 70% in and 30% remote.
And that looks like it's it for right now.
Okay, cool. Well, again, if more questions enter your mind as we're wrapping up here, please don't hesitate to put those in. A couple other pointers that I just wanted to alert people of. Our fourth graders don't necessarily have school sports here, but just for parental knowledge, our Farmington sports, middle school sports and high school sports will officially be starting later in September. All of our other after-school clubs and activities will begin the week of October. So we really want to take some time and make sure that we are working on our kinks. We're fine-tuning things if we need to fine-tune things, which most likely we will. Once we're in some stability, we do want to start offering some after-school clubs and activities for our students. In the past, we've had robotics, just like I know some of our students that I see on here tonight have been down here with the Robotics Club and are already a part of that, which is great. I know last year we had a game club, we had a STEM club, and our teachers have been tremendous with offering those types of after-school activities for our students. We want to continue having those. Obviously, there are going to be restrictions and we're going to need to follow them. So the month of September, we'll be in discussion with the teachers to work out plans to ensure that we can still offer some of these activities. And as you can see by the third star there, you know, I'm looking for our staff to offer different clubs and activities. So they're in the process of contacting me to let me know if they want to offer something for our students, because that's so important in a student's academic day, right? It's not just about the academics, and it's not just about, okay, it's 2:35, the school day's over. We want to offer enrichment opportunities for our students. Again, we want to be that inclusive school where we're offering something to everybody. So those after school clubs and activities are still so important, and we're going to do everything in our power to at least have some during the COVID-19 pandemic. And in closing, and I know there may be a couple other questions before we go, but I do want to thank you. I know as a parent, as a guardian, as a student, the spring was nuts. The spring was crazy. We were all kind of, you know, barely treading water, trying to stay afloat. There was so much going on, and all of us were in tremendous pressure in a way. So thank you for all your hard work this past spring, and thank you in advance for all the hard work that we're all going to need to do as we re-enter school. And I do want to thank again our amazing Henry Wilson staff. They've gone above and beyond in planning for our reopening. Some of our teachers have been here for several weeks getting ready. All of our teachers have been here this week, as I mentioned earlier, preparing their classrooms, troubleshooting. You know, they have to make a lot of changes with the way that they're approaching their instruction. So just thank you to all of our staff. And as I put, you know, in this picture on this slide, we will get by, we will survive. And as I mentioned at the very beginning, if we continue to collaborate, work together, and most importantly, communicate with each other, we will be successful. The outcome, you know, may not be what we want, meaning we may have some COVID cases that come up. We may have, you know, this happen or that happen. But as long as we're communicating to each other, school to home, home to school, we'll get through this together. And something that I've been talking to our staff all week about is that we're a team. We have to foster that team philosophy here at school. A team with our colleagues, a team with our staff members, but as a team with our students. Our students are so important to this team. They are such important members to this team. And our parents and guardians, our families, our community families are so important to this team. We want what's best for our students. We want them to succeed. We want them to feel like Henry Wilson is their school, that it's a welcoming place, that it's a place that they enjoy going to. And it's going to be a very challenging time. We don't have all the answers yet. We're going to hit some rocks along the way. We're going to have those hiccups. We will have to change things. You know, we're going to be reevaluating every day. If something that we have in our plan, you know, we try it out and oh, it's not working, we have to change it. But if we keep that communication and collaboration open, I strongly feel that it is going to be a successful year. It's going to be a completely different type of year, but if we do that, it will still be successful. Are there any other questions, Mrs. Pomeroy?
Yeah, there's the question again that has been asked every night, and so it's if a student tests a student or staff, or if there's a positive COVID case in our school, what happens?
Yeah, so again, check out the district plan that has been approved by the school board, because that goes more into detail about the reaction to COVID positive cases. Because as you see in that plan, just because we have a COVID case, that will not be grounds for closing the school and becoming remote. That it'll be dependent on the child's grade level, the cohort that they're in, and so on. So you want to make sure that you check that document out. It's on the school website, but that document was approved by the school board, and that's our district reopening document, because I think it's important for our parents to understand that and know that just because there is a COVID case in the school, that is no longer grounds for school closure. So definitely check those details out. It talks about, you know, the number of cases it would take, you know, for example, for the school to close down, or if we're just going to quarantine, you know, one grade level because we have a case there and whatnot. So definitely check that information out, as it goes into great detail as far as the district approach to the reopening of our schools.
And they would be notified if there were a case, not, they wouldn't be told a specific name or anything like that, but they would be notified if there was a case in our school.
Absolutely. You'll definitely be notified if there's a case. As Mrs. Pomeroy just said, we're not going to be able to say names. I'm not sure if we can even say classrooms due to confidentiality reasons, but you will be notified if there's a case in the school, and then the precautions or the procedures that we are taking as a result of that happening.
And if they get notification of a positive COVID case in the school, they would be able to put their child into remote.
Absolutely. We want you to feel comfortable. You know, you're the parent. You know, same deal with me as a parent, right? I need to be comfortable for my daughter who's going into first grade. And if I don't feel comfortable, you know, my wife and I, we're not sending her. So totally, as a parent, I completely understand. So that's definitely your decision to make.
And I don't know if I had mentioned this question, but it came up in the chat and I did answer it. If a child receives services with their IEP, will they still get it if they're remote?
Yeah, that's a great question. An IEP is a legal document. A 504 plan is a legal document. So no matter whether or not the child is physically in the building or remoting at home, right? As a school district, we need to follow that document. We need to follow the accommodations and or modifications. So that document will continue to be followed. I know our case managers will be reaching out to everybody if they have not reached out yet, to talk more about how that would work in the remote learning environment.
Miss Ham, can you wave? Because that's the 4th grade case manager, and she is so awesome.
Hi, everyone. It's so nice to meet you. I can't wait to work with you.
And the way that she just sounded, that's how she sounds every day, no matter what the circumstances.
Absolutely. That's it for questions tonight.
All right. Anybody else with a question before we get off? All right. Well, thank you again. As you can imagine, it's been definitely a true effort, a collective effort by everybody to really formulate these plans. And again, as principal of Henry Wilson, my #1 priority is for our students and our staff to be safe. So I've been spending so much time to make sure that we can have the safest building possible, based on the decision that our school board made. So again, if there are any other questions, concerns, anything, please reach out. I never want any of our parents to feel like you have a question or you have a concern that has not been addressed. So please, if that's the case at any time, COVID world or not, reach out to us. As again, we're a team. We want to be supportive of you, and in return, hopefully that would allow you to be supportive of us. So thank you again for everything. We will be sending, or I'll be sending tonight's presentation out in digital form, so look for that. I believe our 4th grade teachers, and feel free if one of you wants to chime in, you'll be planning a Google Meet on Tuesday. Is that correct?
Yeah, we were talking about that, hopefully being able to invite our individual classes into Google Meets with us, so we can meet with parents and students in just our classes at some point on Tuesday. So
Great.
look to hearing from us. The one thing is, if not all emails are in PowerSchool, so I did put my email over in the chat. I know others probably will as well. If you can email us, if you know that we are your child's teacher, that would be great. And if not, we'll have Mr. C send stuff out with individual links for each of our individual meets.
Yeah, so if you've been getting my emails, we have your active email address. If you have not been receiving my emails, please definitely call the main office to make sure that we have your correct email on file in our student database. And as you just said, you will hear from your child's teacher individually on what time that will be taking place. One last question. Do you guys do Class Dojo? Anybody want to answer?
I think we were all talking about possibly doing. I know that I do plan on it.
Okay, great. And I know most, if not all of our 4th grade parents will be familiar with Class Dojo, as that was a major platform used at Valley View. All right. Well, thank you again. We're really excited to see our students back on Wednesday, if not in person, virtually. And again, don't hesitate to reach out if you need anything. All right. Thanks so much, everybody. Have a great night. Stay safe, and we'll see you next week.
Mr. C, I think there was one more question from a parent who asked if that they had wanted to do a remote, if they could make the decision to come in before next week.
If they want to change their decision?
Yes.
Yes, yep, just please let the office know, and we'll make sure that we get that in the works, and we get everything set up so your child can come in on Wednesday. Yep. All right, sounds great. Thank you, everybody. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.